MAGA report targets Netflix boosts Paramount's WBD bid. Snyderverse and haircut in play? Huh? All right. A new political bombshell just shifted the Warner Brothers Discovery buyout battle. And it's great news for Paramount and DCEU fans. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, certainly for Paramount. Anyway, via Deadline, a blistering 47-page report from MAGA-aligned oversight project calls Netflix the biggest political and ideology messaging machine. I suppose it would supposed to be ideological. Anyway, a machine in human history, accusing it of pushing progressive propaganda through content like Stranger Things. Yes, they're cuties. Oh, good God. An Obama-produced document. Well, you know, it's Obama. The think tank is demanding aggressive federal scrutiny of Netflix's proposed $83 billion all-cash takeover of WBD. Is it really all cash, though? The oversight project connected to Trump's inner circle has reportedly delivered the FedFlix document to the White House. DOJ and Senator Mike Lee, ahead of Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos' antitrust hearing on Tuesday. Well, Trump leans toward Paramount over monopoly fears. Really? Meanwhile, Donald Trump has praised both Netflix and Paramount, but signaled concerns about Netflix's market dominance, describing the streamer as possibly a monopoly and that he would be involved in the review process. And he's later said he's not involved. So, anyway. Trump remains close with Oracle founder Larry Ellison, whose son David Ellison leads Paramount Global and has issued a $108 billion competing bid. That's a lot of money. Hey, that lady's almost naked. Anyway, this all puts Paramount back in the driver's seat. It's a plus for them, as it's the predictable roadblocks to the regulatory, hoops and hurdles that Netflix would have to go through to seal the deal here, and that sort of thing. And so it was always a part of Paramount's argument. But if the shareholders are going to go with what the board decides, then no, this won't. Now, ultimately, could the Justice Department scuttle the deal and prevent it from happening? Yes, they could. So then, well, that's another scenario entirely, I suppose. Yes, then Paramount, yeah, we're fine with you doing it, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, they would have to be reviewed. But if you review Netflix on its stance as a monopoly, as being the dominant streamer, then that's the antitrust path you can do. You can complain about their ideology all you want, and that, that's what this is a vehicle for that, and that's the reason to pursue monopoly to where there is nothing else but one-sided views and all that sort of thing in all kinds of content that would come out of Netflix and that sort of thing. But ultimately, they pretty much have a right to produce whatever stories they want. If they don't want stories that are more of a conservative nature and that sort of thing, then they can't. It's really shameful to have something like Cuties on any platform. It's disgusting. But they can do it, and they did it, But it comes down to, are they akin to a monopoly? It's too much control over the industry. And so this is Paramount's it's just not going to get there, with the purchase of Warner Brothers. But Netflix fits that mold more. So that's really the only argument. But, when they had the Senate hearing and all that, and they had Sarandos in there, and they, put his feet to the fire over that, And then it's obvious. Yeah, we know what you're doing here. And that you're an arm of the left and the Democratic Party and that sort of thing, and all of that. But ultimately, if they want to, green light basic propaganda for the left on their streaming service, well, they can. Ultimately, it just comes down to, I mean, it is one of the problems there. Well, what if they didn't? What if they had all this propaganda that was the other way around and they're in the dominant position they're in? You still have the same antitrust problem. It regardless of the content. What matters is your position over it and that there's no room for competition anymore. So anyway, McCloyne adds this in, that this all puts Paramount back in the driver's seat, and as he's previously reported, if Paramount wins the WBD, Snyderverse is back on the table. Now, and this is what he's heard from sources in there. Initially, people thought, hey, if Netflix got Warner Brothers, then Zack Snyder, he's done all these movies for them. So it stands to reason that, because the big movement was sell Snyderverse to Netflix and all this sort of thing. And so could that come to fruition? I don't know that they're on the same strong terms that they were initially, because from what I can tell, and just by watching them, Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon didn't do very well, and I didn't particularly care for them. I thought they were pretty bad. So, that's not, that's all, and it looks like money was spent on it, So when it doesn't measure up, and then you're going to take this risk with, an old iteration, if you will, that has its following, has its fandom. A lot of DCEU I did like. A lot of it I couldn't stand. But Snyder's films, I saw them as flawed, but I did enjoy them. And I wouldn't mind seeing a completion of his Justice League story. But it seems, I don't know that Netflix is all that likely of it. The other scenario is maybe they'd be interested in him doing a full-on adaptation of Dark Knight Returns, which he's always wanted to do. That seems more likely. It's probably more likely overall, even if Paramount wins this over. But McCloyne here saying he's hearing that Paramount is very interested in the Snyderverse films. So anyway, now it also appears as if the Air cut of Suicide Squad could also be released under new leadership, aligned with Snyder and David Ayer. Judging from Snyder's recent post on Instagram, which we have been told is being posted to judge reactions from the fans. So there you go. He's got to stand in there and with David Ayer and all that, and then talking about it. And they were kind of in the same boat. The only difference is David Ayer's Suicide Squad was more complete. But they just never released it, but I suppose it would have. That's another, it's hard to gauge how successful was Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max. What did it do for them? The fact that they immediately cut it all off. Now, some of that, there was bruised egos and the two camps hated each other and that thing. And that goes a lot longer than you would think when, there's money to be made, Usually you would think that would rule the day. But, because so if it was successful, then, okay, well, then let's do it again with the haircut, and make it a special HBO Max thing. And they didn't. So I suppose if Paramount takes this on, they want to try this again, where it's a big push of a restoration of DCEU. And along with it, they do a release of Air Cut in the meantime while Snyder's, getting ready to shoot Justice League 2 and 3. Maybe. Still, it just feels like such a long shot overall. But A Dark Knight Returns could be a deal. And even if it's only that, if it's just Dark Knight Returns, and Snyder does that, he could still release Aircut on Paramount. And who knows, maybe Netflix would release it too once they got it. But anyway, the saga of the WBD war continues.